Hello again, Lincoln. I had a couple people ask, so I thought I should explain the sign that I'm holding here that says, "Boycott white powders, bring back herb." This is a very old message, actually. I first picked up this message back in 1990 when Jack Hare went through Purdue University, where I was. What I mean by white powders at that time, it was still cocaine and heroin, white China heroin they were talking about.
Something isn't
But
okay.
synthetic drugs,
Okay.
pharmaceuticals, you take these things, you crystal and powderize them, and they become a white powder. All the things that people are putting in their bodies, either legally or illegally, that are killing them, when what they really need is the herb. And again, this is just a discussion about do we or do we not have a right to use herbal medicine in America. I want to do a thing called pot is the anti-drug. I can give you a top 10 reason of why pot is the anti-drug.
I don't know him real well, but I know him enough.
The first and most obvious is there's no overdose. You can overdose on just about anything else in this world, but you cannot ingest enough cannabis to overdose. Enough said, pot is the anti-drug. There is no addiction to cannabis. Science has finally caught up on this. We've known it for about a decade now that when you smoke cannabis, it doesn't stimulate dopamine like heroin does. It doesn't work by blocking reuptake of dopamine like cocaine does. When you smoke your first hit or two of cannabis, the cannabinoid receptors are telling your pituitary gland to release all available melatonin at once. And that is that dreamy feeling that cannabis is so famous for. The dreamy feeling that you can tell scientifically with an EEG because the waves of your brain are in the alpha state. The alpha state brainwave is specific to REM dreaming sleep. So in that way, cannabis is not a heroin addiction. Cannabis is not nodding off. Cannabis is nothing but a daydream. Not only isn't cannabis addictive, cannabis is anti-addictive. Cannabis has been used by many Americans as their only accessible health care when they come down with an addiction to cigarettes or crack. And I've even known people who have kicked heroin by eating cannabis. And that was probably a lot of CBD involved in that process as well, since you're eating it. So pot is not addictive. Pot is the anti-drug. Pot is not only not addictive, it's anti-addictive. Pot is the anti-drug. Pot requires no precursor chemicals to make. No petroleum in pot. All these pharmaceuticals made from petroleum, and they burn holes in your liver after a few years of using them. Why would you want to put that in your body when you can use cannabis for a better, safer solution to your health problem? But no, we have meth labs all over out in the boonies where the farmers are making it. And when the police raid, they have to come in with hazmat suits because it's so dangerous. That's why the police would rather raid your grow operation, because nothing's going to hurt them unless they trip or a light falls on them.
Several times a day.
So pot does not require precursor chemicals like all other drugs do. Pot is the anti-drug.
You can't do that.
There is no pollution associated with the use of pot. Pot smokers save their seeds, save their stems. There's a company in Colorado that's making paper now out of the branches and stems left over from the recreational and medical market. But what do we get when we go to our beaches? They look like ashtrays with all the cigarette butts, and only a few cigarette butts, if your toddler eats them, can cause death. Your toddler can't die from cannabis, but your toddler can very easily die from tobacco. You see broken glass everywhere. You see at festivals when people are drinking, acts of violence against inanimate objects. So they'll break something up, they'll mess up a porta potty. You don't see that with pot people. Pot people only leave their fingerprints behind. They save their roaches, they save their seeds, they save their stems. The pot user is the very model of the environmentalist. Pot does not cause pollution. Pot is the anti-drug. There's no price gouging with pot because you're not addicted to your product. The pusher can't force you to pay whatever he wants you to pay for your product. You're not smoking cannabis because you're forced to. You're smoking cannabis because you choose to. And if you don't like the price, you can always say, screw it, I won't do it. And if I really want to be safe, I'll grow my own and control the price for myself. That's why the right to grow is very important. And if you can't, you have to have a rock-solid, not-for-profit distribution system for the patients at least to prevent people from coming in with the wrong ideas trying to price gouge on pot. Because where it's been tried in the legal states, it hasn't worked out very well because the people who want to profiteer on pot still can't compete with the caregiver. There's no price gouging with pot because pot is the anti-drug. All these drugs like cocaine and heroin, the plants they come from, they have no other uses. But cannabis, even recreational cannabis, can be used in a myriad variety of hemp products. And I think that's enough said. It's very obvious how many things can be made from hemp. And the leaves themselves, the buds even, can be used to make paper. They can be used to make medicines, of course, but they can also be used to make industrial oils. So pot has all these other uses. It's not a synthetic. It's not a drug. It's the anti-drug. There is no bad history concerning cannabis. Cocaine was invented in the late 1800s by a German scientist. It didn't even take a couple decades before people were reporting problems with it. Heroin, a famous and historical problem drug. Years of history of the problems caused by heroin and cocaine. And yet, the history of cannabis goes back as far as history goes. And still, the oldest worked relic still in existence is a piece of hemp garment that they found in China, thousands and thousands of years old. And we find that hemp and cannabis have pretty much been like the dog was domesticated. This is the plant version of that. Cannabis is the plant version, the plant kingdom representation of the dog as far as being man's best friend. It's been there with us all the time. You know, we tamed the wolf and turned the wolf into the dog. We tamed the feral hemp and turned it into cannabis. And it's been there through all these years and no one's had a problem with it. Until the 1930s in an apartheid America, when any white person would believe anything negative that was said to them about somebody who wasn't white. So, in fact, the history against cannabis is where you find the negative. That's where you find the racism. That's where you find all the lies. People come into a judicial committee hearing with their children in wheelchairs. They're not lying. They're not there to deceive or trick anybody. But the people in the suits from law enforcement, from the state chapter of the AMA, these people are paid to have their opinion. And they were paid to be there at that hearing. Other people skipped out of work and actually lost money, revenue, hours at work to tell the truth to power. Just like I'm doing here to tell the truth to power today, and nobody's paying me either. So there's no bad history about pot, but there is bad history against prohibition, because pot is the anti-drug. There's no CIA involvement with pot. You see, when the CIA is looking for slushy money funds to fund their secret wars, they don't turn to selling joints. You can't make that kind of profit margin at a 25% markup to fund a secret war. But they do traffic in heroin, and Air America was caught trafficking heroin into America from Vietnam, and then a decade later, the CIA was caught trafficking cocaine into America, all the time cracking down on cannabis as if cannabis was the problem. So there's no CIA involvement with cannabis except to attack it, because cannabis is not the friend of the CIA. Cannabis is the anti-drug. You don't need rehab for cannabis, and we need to get on this point. I make no apologies in saying that cannabis is not an addictive drug. It's impossible to get addicted to cannabis. Sure, there may be a psychological fixation, but you can have that on anything. You'll step on a crack, break your mother's back, and it's a phase that you can go through and it goes away. It's not brain damage, people. But behavioralism, cognitive behavioral therapy, legalized brainwashing, whatever you want to call it, doesn't have anything for the cannabis user. There's no maintenance drug for the cannabis user, even though they're trying, and they come up with sick, blowback scientific mistakes and disasters trying, but you don't need a maintenance drug for cannabis. In fact, if you need to quit your cannabis, I can sum up what it takes to do that in 3 words. That's right, 3 words. To quit cannabis, all you need is a reason to. Lots of people, they smoked through high school, and then when they went to college, like I did, I said, I don't want to be messing around with anything illegal or having to find pot when I need to be studying, so I quit pot because I had a reason to, because I went to college. Some people quit pot because of a new relationship. They have a reason to, and they don't need to go to rehab to stop. All they got to do is just stop. So there's no rehab for pot because pot is the anti-drug. Now those are just 10, my top 10 reasons why pot is the anti-drug. But there's many more, because pot can be compared to so many problems in this society and found to be the solution instead of found to be an aspect of those problems. So when you save your seed, you're saving the seed that saves the planet. When you share your weed, you're sharing the medicine that heals the nations. Don't ever let anyone put you down. Don't ever let anyone say that you can't be proud of the fact that you're among good company. That Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, famous pot users, and hallucinogen users as well. I wouldn't call them losers. Al Gore, the first presidential candidate who admitted to smoking pot but didn't have to apologize about it. And our own current president, former pot smoker, he turned out okay. People in our legislature, I'm sure, and I'm not here to out anybody unless provoked. Well, I'm telling you people, we are part of the solution, and we need to show up and grow up this movement so that we can exercise the power of the truth, because the truth isn't going to do you any good if you're the only one that knows it. The truth belongs to God. The truth is a gift from God. In fact, truth is God, because God is truth. So what does it mean when the government takes some truth and makes it a secret or lies and tries to make that truth go away? They've committed a sin against you. They have stolen that truth from you, and by virtue of the fact that they've stolen the truth from you about cannabis, they have in that way helped to break your connection with your Creator just a little bit more. And we don't need any of that. If the case against cannabis was so God Almighty righteous, why does it require so many lies, so much intimidation, so much rumor and innuendo? Why do the people who are opposed cannabis seem to really not worry about public health and safety, but just have a malicious desire to attack people that are different from themselves, people that they know will never buy into their narrow-minded conservative mindset, because they don't want to live their life a tool for someone else's profit. They don't want to live their life a wage slave. And if they have to do it, they get by because they get high. And if you're going to drink, think again. If you're going to smoke cigarettes, I still have it, this ad from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and ONDCP that was in the USA Today right before one of my rallies, a full-page ad that said, some parents think they would rather have their children smoking pot rather than getting hooked on cigarettes. And they told them, they would tell those parents that they were wrong to say that about their children. They would rather tell our parents to tell their kids that they would be better off addicted to nicotine than smoking pot. So that is an anti-drug ad that promotes addiction, paid for by your tax dollars, with no sense of irony in the delivery. It's sick, people, and cannabis is good medicine for a sick world like that. So remember, pot is the anti-drug.